Hello and welcome to week 6 of A Better Balance, which is our final week. So we're going to be building on what we talked about in week 5 when we referred to bringing things together and continuing with some of that today. Now today is a reflective task for you. As well as having some things already fresh in your mind after week 5, you may find you benefit from going back and looking over again the exercises, the journaling, and the one-to-one session notes that I've emailed you about what we've spoken about. This is going to go a little bit deeper and continue to build on that personal honesty with yourself. So I invite you, as I say, to go back and have a look. Consider whether, in weeks such as week 3 when we looked at shoulds and stories, have any new things been coming up for you? These tasks are really useful to do, but they're most useful when we continue to be mindful about what we've learnt about ourselves in them, and we can continue to build on it and develop that area. So perhaps you found the task of the shoulds and what you do genuinely believe, what could be crossed out and reworded, useful. But have new things crept in? Have you been using the word should and you're not mindful of it? Perhaps you need to revisit the task. Perhaps you want to tweak it in some way for yourself. What more could you get from it? Have a think about that attitude to the different tasks. What did you get most from? What have you avoided? If there are things you feel like you've avoided, why? Why was it difficult? Did you choose not to do it because you didn't have time or interest? Did it seem like it wasn't something that was applicable to you? Now, that may well be the case, and that's absolutely fine. But sometimes we put barriers up, which mean that when we come to it in that moment, it's not applicable to us. But be really honest with yourself. Could you come back to a difficult task with a different mindset and be more ready for it? Could you get more from it? Consider how we started. In week 1, we talked about where you want to be. That's a standard starting point in coaching. Has this course changed your mind at all about where you want to be? Perhaps the clarity you've had over the last 5 weeks has enabled you to reflect about a different point you would like to end up at. That's great. Has where you are now changed? I know a lot of people have had a difference in the circumstances simply during the last 5 weeks. So it's absolutely fine if you look back at the week 2 roles you play and how you feel about them, if that's changed completely. If where you want to be or where you are now have changed, and that's not surprising, then perhaps your answers to some of the tasks would be different if you were to repeat it. Now, I'm not saying you should go back and do the whole thing again, but you're going to have access to all this information from your inbox, and later when I give you login details, when it will be available on my site, forevermore. So there's nothing to stop you going back at a different time with a different set of circumstances or a different mindset and going through some of these tasks again. All these tools that you've acquired through doing these tasks, we're going to be talking about bringing things together in order to move forwards and what you want to set goals around later in this week. But look back, with what you know about yourself now and everything we've done, do you still feel the same about what you have to do? Perhaps you don't feel that you have to do all the things all the time. As I say, as I have said in lots of these videos, this is intended to build on itself week by week. So when you think about where you are now, do you still have the same attitudes about things like shoulds and roles and stories as you did in the weeks they first came up? Consider that. All these prompts will be in the email as well, because I know it's difficult to keep up with me sometimes. And then we're going to be bringing these together. Now, the tasks for this week, I'm not going to give them times like I sometimes do. That's because they are slightly different. They're things that I encourage you to do this week, because whilst we're still thinking very much about what we've been covering, I think it'll be really helpful. But they're also intended to be tasks that you can come back to and apply in a slightly different way at any point in time that will serve you. So for example, in our next task, our next task is going to be thinking about short-term, medium-term and long-term goals, what you want and why. There's going to be a visualization to go with it. I'm going to invite you to think about what seems like a good plan to make for you right now. Maybe you only want to think about the next week or so. Maybe you just want to get through Christmas. Maybe you're bursting at the seams to get all that you've learnt down on paper, in a plan of some sort for the whole of next year. There's no right or wrong. See what feels good to you and see what you want to return to. We'll be ending the week on a very practical note, talking about some hints and tips for getting the most out of your goals, for making them really smart, but also making them your own. Now, some people love to have really specific goals. Some people are put off by that. So this will be intended to make them right for you so that you can get the most from your ideas for your life. That's the most important thing. There'll also be some information about how we can have a regular check-in with ourselves to work out what is right for us at any given time. So lots of practical information. We're starting today with the reflective side and then moving on to practicalities. And I hope that it will mean that everything you've taken from the last 5 weeks will be consolidated this week and you can take that forward and find it super useful. Have a great week and I'll see you soon.